Hi, my name is Kaela, and I will be talking about Hermann Joseph Muller, who was the Nobel Prize winner for his discovery of the production of mutations by X-ray irradiation. Hermann Joseph Muller went by H.J. Muller. He was path-breaking in his studies as a geneticist, and he was a steadfast social activist. Muller's career could be described as an interesting combination of scientific discovery and world travel. Muller was born in New York City on December 21, 1890. His father and grandfather were of artisan background. Although his father was an artist and passed away when Muller was only 10, he was the one who made H.J. curious about the universe and what all went on in the world. From a young age, Muller excelled in public schools. He attended Morris High School in the Bronx, and it was there where he and two of his fellow classmates founded what might have been the very first high school science club. Muller just had his mother and sister since his father passed away, and they were not that wealthy. But with the aid of a scholarship, he was able to attend Columbia after graduating high school. During Muller's first year of college, he became interested in biology, and after reading a book on genetics by R.H. Locke, he decided to specialize in genetics. Specializing on his studies, Muller was influenced by a professor named E.B. Wilson and by books written by Loeb and other authors who wrote on experimental biology and physiology. In college, Muller founded yet another science club, with this one focusing in on biology. When it came time to do his graduate, he couldn't find a position in zoology until 2 years later, where he became a teaching assistant at Columbia. But because of the initial lack of a zoology position, Muller got another scholarship and he taught fellowship in physiology at Cornell Medical College. Muller studied at Woods Hole, and the rest of his time he spent in a lab at Columbia. He also spent his nights teaching foreigners English. On top of it all, Muller continued working on his studies with genetics. Muller was very interested in Drosophila, which another Nobel Prize winner, Thomas Morgan, opened up. From 1910, Muller closely followed Morgan's work. Muller didn't have much experimental work of his own until 1912, when he began his own investigation of linked genes, which supported the theory of crossing over, and that's what he wrote his thesis on. Muller also analyzed variable multiple factor characters using marker genes. These studies led to the validity of chromosomal inheritance and of gene stability, and that led to Muller's theory of balanced lethals in 1916. From 1915 to 1918, Muller taught at Rice University as an intern professor while Morgan was away on sabbatical, and during that time he began his studies on mutation. When he returned to Columbia as an instructor, he spent 2 years working on methods for quantitative mutation study. Muller formulated the chief principles of spontaneous gene mutation, including most mutations being detrimental and recessive. He also put forward the concept of a gene being the constituting basis of life and of evolution. In late 1926, Muller went back to Texas, only this time it was to UT instead of Rice. And while he was there, he alienated himself from other scientists. Muller became an advisor of the National Student League, named by the FBI as a communist student organization, and he became the underground editor of The Spark, which was a newspaper that promoted socialist goals, including civil rights for African Americans, equal opportunity for education and careers for women, unemployment insurance for the unemployed, and many other progressive legislation that the Communist Party supported. And Muller supported the Communist Party's ideas, but he never joined them. And as far as his studies went, Muller obtained evidence of the abundant production of gene mutations and chromosome changes by X-rays, which was published in 1927. And then in 1932, Muller became despondent and tried to commit suicide by taking pills, but he failed at his attempt and he returned the next day as if nothing had happened. And it wasn't long after that Muller decided to move to Berlin, and he won an award, a fellowship award. And once he got to Berlin, he collaborated with Timothy Rozovsky in studies on target theory and the expression of partial dominance by recessive vehicles. And then in the following year, Hitler came into power and Muller moved to the Soviet Union, and the 5 years he spent there were transforming. He had the best support for his research as a corresponding member of the USSR Academy of Sciences. He was free of teaching duties, so he went ahead and started up 2 of his own labs where he recruited graduate students and other research associates, and that led to 20 years of research by Muller and many others. Muller was nominated for the Nobel Prize, which he won in 1946 for the discovery that mutations could be induced by X-rays. He collaborated with geneticist John Sanford and wrote the book Genetic Entropy, and their theory with genetic entropy has the possibility to overturn Darwin's theory on an experimental basis alone. And then H.J. Muller died of heart problems on April 5th, 1967, which was 21 years after he won the Nobel Prize. Muller was very hardworking and driven, and he seemed to be able to do many things at one time without being completely overwhelmed. He was also a developer, like he started his own clubs and he started labs, and he wanted to spread his knowledge of science to the world. All of these characteristics led him to be very successful in his life.